If you have an oven and a loaf pan, you can make this soft sandwich bread at home. This is a beginner-friendly recipe and a rewarding experience. See how soft and fluffy this is? No dough conditioners, enhancers, or preservatives, and uses minimal fats to achieve this texture. So you can enjoy soft bread that isn't too rich or oily. Hey friends, today I'm going to be showing you how I make American-style white sandwich bread at home. It's beginner-friendly, super easy, and uses minimal fats and sugars. We will be using a stand mixer, and if you do not have a stand mixer, I have another video where I show you how to make this bread, exact same recipe, but without a stand mixer, and you can find that link in the description box below. In terms of loaf pan size, this recipe, you can either make it in a 9x4 by 4 inch loaf pan that produces a slightly taller loaf, or you can use a 9x5 inch loaf pan that produces a loaf shape that is similar to some of the store-bought brands. And if your loaf pan is different, do check out this video which teaches you how you can scale any bread recipe to the size of your loaf pan. Alright, let's go bread making. Into the stand mixer bowl, add 210 grams of water, 20 grams of sugar, 4 grams of instant yeast, make sure it is instant yeast, not active dry yeast, 49 grams egg, which is 1 large egg, and 350 grams of bread flour. Secure the mixing bowl onto the stand mixer and using the dough hook attachment and turning on to the lowest speed setting, combine the ingredients by stirring for 1 minute. By the end of the minute, all the dry ingredients would have been hydrated like so. Then knead for 15 minutes to develop the gluten. Start with the lowest setting and gradually increasing it to speed 4. Are you aware that most consumer stand mixers, including this one, are not designed to knead dough at high speeds? The manual of this stand mixer states not to exceed speed 2 for yeast doughs as it may cause damage to the mixer. On the other hand, to achieve this type of soft and fluffy texture in sandwich breads, the dough needs to be kneaded at high speeds in order to develop the gluten in a short time. Let's look at speed 2, the recommended speed, in slow motion. We can see the dough is spinning but barely touching the wall of the bowl, so the gluten is not really being developed. Let's increase the speed to speed 3 and then 4. We can see that the dough, while being kneaded, is hitting the wall of the bowl and stretching in the process. This stretching action helps to develop the gluten structure that builds elasticity and strength, and this contributes to that soft, fluffy, stretchy bread texture that we want. So, to achieve the type of bread we want and to maintain the longevity of our stand mixers, please don't leave the mixer unattended. Watch for the dough and the mixer and try not to let it go on higher speeds for too long. I alternate between speeds 2, 3, and 4 to prevent the mixer from overworking. While the dough is kneading, weigh out 3 grams of salt and 15 grams of butter. You can use either softened butter or butter straight out of the fridge. The heat generated by the mixer during kneading will soften the butter and incorporate it into the dough. 15 minutes have passed. Let's check the dough. Use slightly wet hands to remove it from the hook. Wetting your hands prevents the dough from sticking. If you prefer, you can use a dough scraper to scrape off the dough from the sides. Let's take a look at the gluten. It is much stronger. It still tears easily, but we're not there yet. Add the salt and butter and knead for another 15 minutes, starting with the lowest speed, then slowly increasing it to speed 4 until the butter and salt gets fully incorporated into the dough. Doing this at my own risk, sometimes I increase the speed past speed number 4 for a few seconds to quicken the butter absorption into the dough. This allows for more kneading time, which results in stronger gluten development. Butter slows gluten development, so we knead the dough first to build structure, then add the butter for softness. Salt can inhibit yeast activity, so we incorporate it just before the second knead to minimize direct contact with the yeast. 15 minutes have passed, and let's take a look at our dough. This is what the dough looks like, slightly sticky and not greasy at all. Let's check out the gluten development. Look at this beauty. Stretchy, elastic, and doesn't tear easily. If this is not happening to you, knead for another 5 minutes and check again. In a large mixing bowl, add 1 drop of neutral flavored oil and grease the interior. We do not need a lot of oil, as the purpose is to allow the dough to be able to rise freely later. Transfer the dough onto the bench, and using slightly wet hands, pick up the dough. See this beautiful texture? There's so much satisfaction looking at this strong, smooth, and elastic dough. Pick up the dough and fold it into half. Then turn it 90 degrees and fold it into half again. Then fold it over the seam, which creates a new seam. Then fold it over the new seam and repeat until we turn the dough into a smooth, tight dough ball. Like this. Transfer the dough ball, smooth side up, into the greased mixing bowl and cover with cling wrap and let it rise until it doubles in size. And for me, it is about 75 minutes. But treat time as a guideline here. The goal is for the dough to double in size, and once that goal is achieved, move on to the next step. Grease your loaf pan with a small amount of neutral flavored oil to prevent the bread from sticking to the pan. Depending on your pan, you might also need to line it with parchment paper to prevent the bread from getting stuck to the pan after baking. The dough has doubled in size. Transfer the dough onto the bench, smooth side down. Gently stretch the dough into a rectangular shape without tearing it. I'm punching down the dough to deflate the large air bubbles as best as I can. Then, gently stretch the dough into a larger rectangle. Sprinkle a tiny bit of flour on the dough. And using a marble or plastic rolling pin, we're going to roll out and extend the length of this rectangular dough. The goal of this step is to roll out and get rid of all the air bubbles as best as we can without tearing the dough. This is a sticky dough. I try to use as little flour as possible because its stickiness helps retain the elasticity, which allows the dough to rise freely, giving us that soft and stretchy bread structure that we want. Fold in the 2 short ends of the dough into the middle like a ladder fold. Sprinkle a bit of flour on the top and turn the rectangular dough 90 degrees. We are going to roll out the dough such that its 2 short ends reaches the length of the loaf pan. The material of the rolling pin matters. With a marble or plastic rolling pin, we only need a tiny bit of flour to roll out this sticky dough. If you do not have a marble or plastic rolling pin, you can also use a clean, dry glass jar with a smooth surface without any stickers or glue residue. It will work just as well. If you prefer using a wooden or bamboo rolling pin, I suggest placing parchment paper over the dough, then rolling it out as how you would, and this will prevent the dough from sticking. My bench isn't long enough, so I'm going to tightly roll the dough into a log up until where the rolling pin is. Then I can make some space so I can continue rolling out all the air bubbles. There are 2 goals in this step. 1 is to shape the dough into a log that fits the loaf pan, and 2, to squeeze out all the air bubbles. The reason is because this type of bread has an even and tiny crumb texture, and this step with the rolling pin is crucial to achieve that. It's done. Let's finish tightly rolling the dough into an even log, and then pinch the seams so it seals. I'm also going to pinch the 2 ends of the log. Then I'm going to do a final punch down to remove any remaining air bubbles. Transfer the log seam side down into the loaf pan, and to ensure that it fits and rises evenly, I punch down the dough so that it's uniform throughout the pan. Cover the dough with cling wrap and let it rise until the highest point of the dough reaches the height of your loaf pan. This typically takes about 75 minutes for me, but the timing may vary based on your room temperature. So instead of focusing on the clock, use your dough's height as your guide before moving on to the next step. When the final rise is almost done, preheat the oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. The oven is preheated and the dough has risen. Remove the cling wrap and carefully place the loaf pan in the middle of the oven and bake for 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. After 10 to 15 minutes, check on the bread. Once the top of the bread has turned golden brown or your desired color of brownness, place an aluminum foil over the bread to prevent its top from getting burnt. As I didn't grease the pan with too much oil because I don't want the crust to be too oily, it does stick very slightly, so carefully I use a mini offset spatula to loosen the sides without scratching the pan. Let the bread cool on the rack for at least 2 hours before slicing. Slicing hot bread results in a gummy crumb texture. The bread continues to cook while cooling down, and it allows the steam to escape, enabling the gluten structure to set, giving the bread that pillowy, stretchy texture. After an hour into cooling, when the bread is not hot, place cling wrap over the top of the bread to keep the crust soft. Notice how the cling wrap kept the top crust soft? Turn the bread onto its side to slice. For super soft sandwich breads like this one, slicing from the top puts too much pressure on the bread. So turning the bread to its side gives us more control and makes it easier to produce thin and even slices. There you go, homemade American-style sliced white sandwich bread. Look at this softness. Not too greasy, not too rich, but this texture. Save money and make your own sandwich bread at home. For storage, I individually wrap each slice in cling wrap, put aside what we will consume within 24 hours at room temperature, and freeze the rest. The cling wrap keeps bread from drying out at room temperature and prevents freezer burns in the freezer, and it can last in the freezer for at least a month. There are 2 ways to thaw frozen slices. Leave the frozen wrapped slices at room temperature for 30 minutes or overnight. Or place frozen slices straight into the toaster at the lowest heat setting. These are 2 frozen slices I left at room temperature for 30 minutes. Look how soft they are. Let's make a sandwich. Here's a recap of the steps, which you can also find on the printable recipe. And that's it! More information can be found on the blog post. You can download the printable recipe, where this entire video is in a written step-by-step format. It also includes the conversions of the ingredients from grams to measuring cup and spoons for those of you that prefer it. It's also in ounces. But if you have a digital scale in grams, please use it, because the accuracy of measurement in the ingredients will produce better and consistent results. I hope you give this a try and let me know in the comments below how it turns out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.